The mining ship floated quietly in the darkness of space. Inside, workers from Earth collected rare metals from the asteroids. They had been doing this job for 3 months now. The work was hard, but the pay was good. Most of them had families back home waiting for their return. Captain Hyunwoo sat in his small office on Earth, reading reports. He was young for a captain, only 32 years old. But he had proven himself many times. The military trusted him. They gave him command of the new ship, the Indomitable. It was the strongest ship Earth had ever built. But it was still in the testing phase. Nobody knew if it would really work in battle. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Admiral Ji-won. Her voice was cold and hard. Something bad had happened. The mining ship was gone, destroyed. All 143 people were dead, killed by aliens called the Draxians. The Draxians were powerful. They had a huge empire with thousands of ships. They claimed the asteroid belt belonged to them now. When the human miners refused to leave, the Draxians simply opened fire. They did not give any warning. They did not try to talk. They just killed everyone. Earth sent a message to the Galactic Assembly. This was like a big government for all the alien species in space. Earth complained about the attack. They asked for justice. They wanted the Draxians punished. The Galactic Assembly listened to Earth's complaint. Then they did nothing. Most of the aliens thought humans were weak. Earth had only been in space for a short time. Their ships were small and slow. Their weapons were old. Why should anyone care about them? High Commander Vraxis was the leader of the Draxian military. He gave a speech at the assembly. He laughed at Earth. He said humans should be grateful that the Draxians let them live at all. He said Earth was like a small child who needed to learn respect. The other aliens in the assembly laughed too. Nobody took Earth seriously. Back on Earth, people were angry. Very angry. The government met in emergency sessions. They argued about what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others said fighting was suicide. The Draxians had too many ships. Earth would lose. Admiral Ji-won stood before the United Earth Council. She was calm but firm. She told them the truth. The galaxy only respected strength. If Earth looked weak, other aliens would attack too. Earth needed to show it could defend itself. The council voted. They decided to prepare for war. Captain Hyunwoo received his orders. He would take command of the Indomitable immediately. The ship was not completely ready, but there was no more time. He gathered his crew. Most of them were young like him. They had never been in a real battle before. Lieutenant Mirai was the weapons officer. She was small but fierce. She knew every gun and missile on the ship better than anyone else. Commander Daeho was the chief engineer. He was older and more experienced. He had worked on ships for 20 years. He promised Captain Hyunwoo that the Indomitable would not break down in battle. The Indomitable was different from other ships. It had special weapons called railguns. These guns shot solid metal at incredible speed. Most alien ships had shields designed to stop laser beams and plasma. But railguns were different. The solid metal could punch right through those shields. The ship also had stealth technology. It could hide from enemy sensors. This was Earth's secret advantage. The aliens did not know about it yet. Earth had spent 5 years building this ship in total secrecy. Now it was time to see if all that work would pay off. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his new ship. He looked at his crew. They were scared. He was scared too, but he could not show it. He had to be strong for them. He thought about the 143 miners who died. They deserved justice. Earth deserved respect. Admiral Ji-won sent him a private message. She told him the mission was dangerous. The Draxians would not expect Earth to fight back. That surprise was their only advantage. If the mission failed, Earth might face total destruction. But if they did nothing, Earth would become a slave world. There was no choice. They had to fight. The Indomitable prepared to leave Earth orbit. The crew checked every system twice. The engines roared to life. Captain Hyunwoo gave the order. The ship moved forward into the darkness of space. They were going to the Kepler belt where the miners had died. Intelligence reports said the Draxians were building a base there. Admiral Ji-won wanted that base destroyed. As the ship traveled through space, Captain Hyunwoo walked through the corridors. He talked to the crew. He wanted them to know he cared about them. He wanted them to trust him. War was coming. People would die. But maybe, just maybe, Earth would survive. And maybe the galaxy would finally learn that humans were not weak. They were not to be dismissed. They were fighters. and they would not surrender. The Indomitable moved through space like a ghost. The stealth systems were working perfectly. Enemy sensors could not detect them. Captain Hyunwoo watched the screens carefully. Ahead of them, 3 Draxian cruisers floated near a half-built station. The aliens thought they were safe. They thought humans were too scared to fight back. Lieutenant Mirai checked her weapons one last time. The railguns were charged and ready. The missiles were armed. Her hands moved quickly over the controls. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times in simulations, but this was real. Real enemies. Real danger. Real death. Captain Hyunwoo looked at his crew. They were all waiting for his order. He took a deep breath. Then he spoke clearly and calmly. Attack. The Indomitable dropped its stealth and appeared right next to the Draxian ships. For a moment, nobody moved. The aliens were too surprised. Then hell broke loose, the railguns fired. Solid metal rods shot out at incredible speed. They hit the first Draxian cruiser before it could raise shields. The metal punched through the hull like paper. Explosions rippled across the enemy ship. It broke apart in seconds. The other 2 cruisers tried to turn and fight, but they were too slow. Missiles streaked through space. Lieutenant Mirai targeted their engines and weapons. More explosions. Another Draxian ship went dark. Its power systems failed. It was dead in space. The 3rd cruiser managed to fire back. Plasma bolts hit the Indomitable's shields. The ship shook. Alarms rang out. Commander Deho worked fast in the engine room. The shields were holding, but they could not take much more damage. He rerouted power from non-essential systems. More energy flowed to the shields. The Indomitable could take a few more hits now, but only a few. Captain Hyunwoo gave new orders. Turn hard, get behind the enemy. The Indomitable spun around. It was more agile than the bigger alien ships. The maneuver worked. Now they had a clear shot at the last cruiser's weak point. Lieutenant Mirai did not hesitate. She fired everything, railguns, missiles, even the point defense lasers. The 3rd Draxian cruiser exploded. Debris scattered in all directions. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then someone cheered. Others joined in. They had won. 3 enemy ships destroyed, and the Indomitable was still flying. But Captain Hyunwoo did not celebrate. His sensors showed new contacts. More Draxian ships were coming. A lot more. The enemy had called for help. Now 6 more cruisers and 2 battleships were heading their way. The Indomitable could not fight them all. He made the hard choice. Retreat. The crew worked quickly. They turned the ship around and activated the engines at full power. The Indomitable ran. Behind them, the Draxian fleet fired. Plasma bolts and missiles chased them through space. One missile got too close. It hit the rear shields. More alarms. More damage. Commander Deho reported bad news. The rear shields were failing. Another hit would destroy the engines. They would be dead. Captain Hyunwoo thought fast. He ordered all power to the engines. Forget the shields, just run. The Indomitable shot forward. Faster and faster. The Draxian ships fell behind. They could not keep up. Lieutenant Mirai launched all their remaining missiles backward. Not to hit anything, just to make the enemy slow down and dodge. It worked. The Draxians had to break formation. That gave the Indomitable a few more precious seconds. Those seconds saved their lives. Finally, they reached the jump point. The ship entered hyperspace. The stars stretched and blurred. They were safe. The crew collapsed in relief. Some were crying. Others were laughing. They had survived their first real battle. Captain Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. Then he went to check on the wounded. 5 crew members were injured. None dead. They were lucky. Very lucky. But luck would not be enough next time. They needed to be better, smarter, faster. Back on Earth, Admiral Jiwon received the report. The mission was a success. 3 enemy ships destroyed. The Draxians now knew that humans could fight. She sent the report to the Galactic Assembly. Let them see what happened when they dismissed Earth. The news spread quickly across the galaxy. Everyone was talking about it. The weak humans had attacked the mighty Draxians, and won. Many aliens did not believe it at first. They thought it was a lie, but the evidence was clear. The battle had really happened. High Commander Vraxis was furious. He screamed at his officers, "How could 3 cruisers lose to 1 human ship?" His face turned purple with rage. He demanded answers. His officers had no good answers. They had underestimated the humans. It was that simple. And that mistake had cost them. Vraxis made a public announcement. He promised to destroy Earth completely. He would make an example of humanity. No one would dare to challenge the Draxian Empire again. He ordered his fleet to prepare for a massive attack. This time they would not underestimate their enemy. This time they would bring overwhelming force. The Indomitable limped back to Earth. The ship needed repairs. Lots of repairs. But it had proven itself. The design worked. The weapons worked. Now Earth needed to build more ships just like it. Admiral Jiwan placed emergency orders. 10 more ships. 20 more. As many as Earth could build. War was coming, real war, and Earth had to be ready. High Commander Vraxis assembled his armada. 12 massive battleships, 40 cruisers, hundreds of smaller ships. It was the largest Draxian fleet in decades. He would lead them himself. This time there would be no mistakes. He would crush the humans completely. Earth satellites detected the fleet when it entered the outer solar system. Admiral Jiwan studied the reports. Her face was calm, but inside she was worried. This was too many ships. Earth's small fleet could not win a direct fight. They needed a different plan. She called a meeting with her best commanders. Captain Hyunwoo was there. So was Captain Taewon, who commanded the stealth ships. They looked at maps and data for hours. Finally, they had a plan. It was risky, very risky, but it might work. Earth would not fight the Draxians in one big battle. Instead, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Stealth ships would attack the enemy supply lines. Hidden weapons platforms would ambush small groups. The main fleet would only fight when they had an advantage. They would make the Draxians pay for every mile of space. Dr. Hana's research team had finished a new weapon, the Prometheus cannon. It was a giant railgun built on a platform near Jupiter. The gun was so powerful it could destroy a battleship with one shot, but it took a long time to reload. They would get only a few shots before the enemy destroyed it. Captain Taewon took his stealth ships out first. They hid in the darkness between planets. When Draxian supply ships passed by, the humans attacked. Quick strikes. In and out. They destroyed fuel tankers and ammunition carriers. The Draxian fleet kept moving forward, but now they had less supplies. The Draxian fleet reached Jupiter. High Commander Vraxis was angry about the attacks on his supply ships, but he did not think they mattered. He had enough supplies to finish the mission. He ordered the fleet to spread out. They would sweep through the solar system and destroy every human station and ship they found. That was exactly what Admiral Jiwan wanted. When the enemy spread out, they were weaker. She gave the signal. The Prometheus cannon fired. A massive tungsten rod shot through space faster than anything the Draxians had ever seen. It hit a battleship dead center. The ship did not just explode. It broke into pieces. Gone in an instant, High Commander Vraxis shouted orders. His fleet scattered even more. They did not want to be the next target. But spreading out made them vulnerable to the next part of Earth's plan. The asteroid belt. Earth had hidden weapons and ships throughout the asteroids. Railgun platforms, missile launchers, small fighting ships that could hide behind rocks. Captain Hyunwoo led the main fleet into the belt. The Indomitable had been repaired and upgraded. Now it had even stronger shields and more powerful weapons. 5 other human warships followed him. They lured a group of Draxian cruisers into the asteroids. Then the trap closed. Hidden platforms opened fire from all sides. Railgun rounds came from unexpected angles. The Draxians tried to fight back, but they could not see all the enemies. They hit asteroids by mistake. They shot at shadows. Meanwhile, human weapons were precise. Every shot counted. Lieutenant Mirai worked like a machine. Target. Fire. Target. Fire. Her crews loaded the railguns as fast as they could. The guns got so hot that they glowed red, but they kept firing. Commander Daeho diverted all cooling systems to the weapons. The crew was sweating in the heat, but the guns stayed operational. The battle lasted for 6 hours. It was brutal and bloody. Earth lost 2 cruisers. 3 more were badly damaged, but the Draxians lost much more. 15 cruisers destroyed. 2 battleships crippled. High Commander Vraxis could not believe what was happening. His superior fleet was being torn apart by these primitive humans. He made a decision. Retreat, regroup, come back with an even bigger fleet. His ships began to pull back toward the outer solar system. Admiral Jiwan did not chase them. She knew better. Her fleet was exhausted. They had won this battle, but they could not fight another one right away. Captain Hyunwoo walked through the damaged corridors of the Indomitable. Medical teams were treating the wounded. Engineers were patching holes in the hull. Everyone was tired, but they were alive. And they had won again. On Earth, people celebrated. They had defended their home. The mighty Draxian Empire had been beaten back. News spread across the galaxy again. Now the other aliens were really paying attention. These humans were not lucky. They were skilled. They were dangerous. Ambassador Soman saw an opportunity. She requested another meeting with the Galactic Assembly. This time when she spoke, the other aliens listened. She showed them recordings of the battle. She showed them how the Draxians had tried to destroy Earth for no good reason. Some aliens began to question whether the Draxian Empire was really as great as everyone thought. But High Commander Vraxus was not finished. He was more determined than ever. He would gather every ship he could find. He would call in favors from allied species. He would blockade Earth and starve them out if he had to. This war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Admiral G1 knew this too. She gave orders to build more ships faster. Earth's factories worked day and night. More Indomitable-class cruisers. More stealth ships. More weapons platforms. Every resource was poured into the war effort. Earth was no longer just defending itself. Earth was preparing to take the fight to the enemy. Ambassador Soman stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly. Thousands of alien representatives watched her. Some were curious. Others were hostile. Most were just confused. How had this small human survived 2 battles against the Draxian Empire? She had prepared carefully for this moment. She showed evidence of Draxian crimes. Not just against humans, against other species too. The Draxians had bullied smaller civilizations for decades. They took resources without asking. They threatened anyone who complained. Most aliens had been too afraid to speak up. Now, seeing that the mighty Draxians could be defeated, some aliens found courage. A representative from the Vadran Consortium spoke up. He said his people had suffered under Draxian threats for years. He showed trade records proving the Draxians forced unfair deals. Other aliens began sharing their own stories. The Draxian representative tried to deny everything. He called it all lies, but there was too much evidence. Too many voices. The assembly voted. They would not help the Draxians against Earth. It was not much, but it was something. Earth would not face the entire galaxy, just the Draxian Empire. After the session, Ambassador Soman met privately with the Vadran leaders. They offered to help Earth secretly. They could provide intelligence about Draxian movements. They could sell weapons and supplies. Earth needed all the help it could get. Soman accepted immediately. Meanwhile, another species watched with interest. The Karathi Ascendancy. They were advanced and powerful, but they rarely involved themselves in galactic politics. They preferred to study and research. However, human tactics had impressed them. The Karathi sent a diplomatic ship to Earth. The Karathi delegation arrived at Earth's orbital station. They were tall and thin with silver skin and large eyes. They spoke in soft voices, but their words were important. They wanted to see human technology. They wanted to understand how Earth fought so effectively. Dr. Hanna gave them a tour of the research facilities. She showed them the railgun designs, the stealth systems, the adaptive targeting computers. The Karathi were fascinated. They had never seen weapons like these. Most species used energy weapons. Humans had gone back to basics. Solid projectiles, simple but effective. The Karathi made an offer. They would share their shield technology with Earth. In return, Earth would share the railgun designs. It was a fair trade. Both sides would benefit. Admiral G1 agreed. The technology exchange began immediately. But High Commander Vraxus had not been sitting idle. He could not defeat Earth in open battle. Not yet, so he tried different methods. He hired mercenaries from various species. These mercenaries attacked human colonies on the edge of space. Small settlements with weak defenses. They killed civilians and destroyed buildings. The attacks made it look like many species were turning against humanity. Vraxus hoped this would isolate Earth. He also sent saboteurs to Earth shipyards. They tried to plant bombs and slow down ship production. Some succeeded. 2 shipyards were damaged in explosions. Captain Tewin was investigating one of the colony attacks. His stealth ship tracked the mercenaries back to their base. There he found something interesting. Draxian communication equipment, Draxian weapons, Draxian money. The mercenaries were not independent. They were hired by Vraxis. Captured one of the mercenary leaders. The alien confessed everything under questioning. Vraxis had hired dozens of mercenary groups. He paid them to attack human targets and make it look random. It was all a conspiracy to make Earth seem like everyone's enemy. Captain Taiwan brought the evidence back to Earth. Admiral G1 sent it immediately to Ambassador Salmon. She brought it to the Galactic Assembly. When the other aliens saw the proof, they were angry. The Draxians had tried to manipulate them. They had tried to start a wider war. The Assembly condemned the Draxian actions. Several species officially declared support for Earth. They would not send military help, but they would trade with Earth. They would share information. The Draxians were becoming isolated instead of Earth. High Commander Vraxis was furious. Everything was going wrong. His military attacks failed. His political schemes backfired. Now other species were openly supporting the humans. His own government was starting to question his leadership. The Draxian Senate called him to explain his failures, but Vraxis refused to give up. He had one more plan: a blockade. He would surround Earth's solar system with ships, not to attack, but to prevent anything from getting in or out. Earth could not trade, could not get supplies from colonies. Eventually, they would run out of resources. They would have to surrender or starve. On Earth, Admiral G1 received intelligence about the planned blockade. She called another meeting with her commanders. Captain Hyunwoo, Captain Taewon, Dr. Hana, and the others gathered. They needed a new plan. The blockade would hurt Earth badly. They had to break it before it was too strong. Captain Hyunwoo studied the Draxian fleet positions. He saw a weakness. The enemy ships were spread thin, trying to cover all approaches to the solar system. If Earth could hit one section with overwhelming force, they could punch through. It was risky. They would be betting everything on one battle. But if they did nothing, Earth would slowly die. Admiral G1 looked at her commanders. She saw determination in their eyes. They had come so far. They had won against impossible odds. They would not give up now. She approved the plan. Operation Breakout would begin in 3 days. Earth would shatter the blockade or die trying. The Draxian blockade tightened around Earth's solar system. Dozens of warships patrolled the outer regions. Supply ships from human colonies could not get through. Trade stopped. Resources became scarce. Food prices on Earth rose. People began to worry. How long could they hold out? Admiral G1 faced pressure from Earth's government. Politicians demanded she negotiate with the Draxians, make peace, accept their terms. But she knew the truth. The Draxians would never offer fair terms. They wanted Earth to become a subject world, a slave planet. She would rather fight and lose than surrender humanity's freedom. Captain Hyunwoo prepared his fleet for Operation Breakout. The Indomitable led a force of 12 warships. The Karathi had sent 3 of their own ships to help. The Vadran provided detailed maps of Draxian patrol routes. Everything had to work perfectly. There would be no second chance. The plan was clever but dangerous. Captain Taewon's stealth ships would create fake sensor readings. They would make it look like Earth was launching attacks in multiple locations. The Draxians would split their forces to respond. Then the main fleet would strike at the weakest point and break through. On the day of the operation, everyone was tense. This was the biggest battle yet. If they failed, Earth would be trapped. The blockade would slowly starve them. Captain Hyunwoo walked through the Indomitable one last time. He spoke to the crew, reminded them what they were fighting for, their families, their homes, their future. The operation began. Captain Taewon's stealth ships activated their electronic warfare systems. Suddenly, Draxian sensors showed massive fleets approaching from 3 different directions. The fake signals looked completely real. High Commander Vraxis took the bait. He ordered his ships to spread out and intercept the threats. With the blockade weakened, Captain Hyunwoo led the real attack. The human and Karathi fleet dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the Draxian lines. The enemy had only 15 ships in that sector now. Earth had 15. For once, it was an even fight. The battle was fierce from the first second. Railguns fired. Energy weapons blazed. Missiles streaked through space. Ships on both sides took damage. The Indomitable targeted the Draxian command ship. Lieutenant Mirai locked onto its bridge and fired a full salvo. The enemy ship's shields flickered and failed. Explosions rippled across its hull. Commander Daeho pushed the Indomitable's reactors beyond safe limits. The ship needed more power. More speed. More shields. He gave it everything. Alarms screamed warnings, but he ignored them. They would win this battle or die. There was no middle ground. The Karathi ships fought beautifully. Their energy weapons cut through Draxian armor like it was paper. Their shields absorbed damage that would have destroyed human ships. Working together, the human and Karathi forces were devastating. The Draxians had never fought such a coordinated attack before. High Commander Vraxis realized what was happening. The other threats were fake. The real attack was here. He ordered his scattered ships to regroup, but they were too far away. By the time they arrived, the battle would be over. Captain Hyunwoo saw his chance. The path was clear. He gave the order. All ships full speed ahead. Break through the blockade. The fleet surged forward. They left the burning wreckage of Draxian ships behind them. Some enemy vessels tried to chase, but they were too damaged and too slow. Earth lost 4 ships in the battle. The Karathi lost 1, but they had done it. The blockade was broken. Supply ships could reach Earth again. The solar system was no longer trapped. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They had survived. They had won. Admiral Jiwon did not celebrate. She knew this was just the beginning. Now Earth had to go on the offensive. They could not just defend anymore. They had to take the fight to the Draxians. Make them hurt. Make them afraid. Show the galaxy that Earth was not just surviving. Earth was winning. Over the next weeks, human strike forces raided Draxian supply bases. Captain Taewon's stealth ships hit targets deep in enemy territory. They destroyed fuel depots, weapons factories, communication stations. The Draxians had to pull ships back from the front lines to defend their own worlds. The Galactic Assembly watched with growing amazement. Earth had been on the defensive for months. Now suddenly they were attacking, winning. The balance of power was shifting. Some aliens began to think the impossible. Maybe Earth could actually defeat the Draxian Empire. High Commander Vraxis faced a crisis. His own government was losing faith in him. The Draxian Senate demanded results, but Vraxis had no more tricks, no more plans. The humans had countered everything he tried. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Real fear. Ambassador Soman met with representatives from a dozen species. They wanted to know Earth's intentions. Would Earth seek revenge against the Draxians? Would Earth become a conqueror like so many before? She assured them that Earth wanted only peace and security. But Earth would never again be weak, never again be ignored. Captain Hyunwoo received a promotion. He was now Rear Admiral, the youngest in Earth's history. He had earned it through blood and victory. But he did not feel proud. He felt tired. So many people had died, so many ships destroyed. War was not glorious. It was necessary. And Earth still had more fighting to do. The momentum had shifted. Earth was no longer the underdog fighting for survival. Earth was now a threat, a power to be respected, and the final campaign was about to begin. Admiral Jiwon looked at the star maps. She pointed to one system, Draxus Prime, the enemy homeworld. That was where this war would end, one way or another. Admiral Jiwon stood before the combined fleet. Ships from 3 species filled the space around her. Earth's warships, sleek and deadly. Karathi dreadnoughts, massive and powerful. Phaedron support vessels, fast and nimble. Together, they would strike at the heart of the Draxian Empire. Together, they would end this war. Rear Admiral Hyunwoo had been given command of the entire fleet. A human leading a multi-species armada. It was historic. It showed how much Earth had earned respect. The Karathi and Phaedron trusted him completely. They had seen his tactical genius in battle. They knew he could lead them to victory. Dr. Hana had equipped every ship with new weapons. Quantum torpedoes that could bypass normal shields. Enhanced railguns with even greater power. Advanced targeting systems that networked all the ships together. The fleet was the most advanced fighting force in the galaxy. And it was aimed at Draxus Prime. High Commander Vraxis knew they were coming. He had pulled every available ship back to defend the homeworld. His fleet was still larger than the human alliance. But numbers were not everything. He had learned that lesson the hard way. Still, he was confident. Fighting close to home, with massive defense platforms and planetary shields, he had advantages. The Allied fleet jumped into the Draxus system. Alarms blared across every Draxian ship. The enemy was here. The final battle was beginning. Both sides knew this would decide everything. If Earth won, the Draxian Empire would collapse. If the Draxians won, Earth would be destroyed. The space battle that followed was the largest in recent history. Hundreds of ships on each side, thousands of weapons firing at once. The darkness of space lit up with explosions and energy beams. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Rear Admiral Hyunwoo coordinated the entire fleet from the Indomitable. He gave orders calmly and clearly. Human ships used their speed and maneuverability. Karathi ships used their overwhelming firepower. Vadran ships disrupted enemy communications and sensors. Each species played to their strengths. Together they were unstoppable. Lieutenant Mireille managed the networked weapon systems. Every ship in the fleet was connected. They could share targeting data instantly. When one ship spotted a weakness, every ship knew. When enemies tried to concentrate fire, the Allies coordinated their defense. It was like fighting a single organism instead of separate ships. Captain Taewon led his stealth ships on a daring mission. While the main battle raged, he infiltrated close to the planet. His ships found the control station for the planetary defense grid. They attacked with precision. Missiles and railgun fire destroyed the station. Suddenly, the planet was vulnerable. High Commander Vraxis saw his defenses crumbling. His ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. The defense platforms were falling silent. The planetary shields were failing. He made a desperate decision. He would personally lead his flagship in a ramming attack against the Indomitable. If he could kill the human commander, maybe his forces could still win. The massive Draxian flagship accelerated toward the Indomitable. It was 3 times larger, more heavily armored. If it hit, both ships would be destroyed. Rear Admiral Hyunwoo saw it coming. He did not panic. He had faced worse odds before. He gave quick orders. The Indomitable turned and accelerated. The 2 ships raced toward each other. Commander Daeho pushed the engines to absolute maximum. The Indomitable shook from the strain. At the last second, Hyunwoo ordered a sharp turn. The smaller ship was more agile. It dodged to the side. Lieutenant Mireille fired every weapon at point-blank range. The shots hit the flagship's engines. Massive explosions tore through the Draxian ship. It went dead, drifting helplessly in space. High Commander Vraxis was pulled from the wreckage by his own crew. He had failed. His fleet was shattered. His homeworld was defenseless. The war was over. He had lost to humans, to species he had called primitive and weak. The shame was unbearable. The Draxian government surrendered. They had no choice. Admiral Jiwon broadcast a message to all Draxian worlds. Earth did not want to conquer them. Earth did not want revenge. Earth wanted peace, but it would be a fair peace. The Draxians would recognize human territory. They would pay reparations for the murdered miners. They would reduce their military. These were the terms the Draxian Senate agreed. They arrested High Commander Vraxis for his failures and crimes. A new government took power, one that understood the galaxy had changed. Earth was now a major power. The old ways of bullying and intimidation were over. Across the galaxy, aliens watched in shock. The mighty Draxian Empire had fallen, defeated by humans who had been in space for less than a decade. It was unbelievable. But it was true. Earth had proven that determination and innovation could overcome tradition and numbers. Ambassador Soman stood before the Galactic Assembly once more. This time everyone listened respectfully. She announced that Earth would take a permanent seat on the Assembly's ruling council. No one objected. Earth had earned its place through blood and courage. From now on, humanity would help shape the future of the galaxy. Rear Admiral Hyunwoo looked out at the stars from the bridge of the Indomitable. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. But the cost had been high. Thousands of people dead, dozens of ships destroyed. He thought about every crew member who would not go home. Every family that lost someone. Victory felt heavy, not joyful. But he also thought about the future. Earth was safe now. Children would grow up without fear of alien invasion. Colonies would prosper. Humanity would continue to explore and grow. That was worth the sacrifice. That was worth everything they had endured. The war was over. Now peace could begin. The peace conference was held at Proxima Station. It was neutral territory, controlled by the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Soman led the human delegation. Representatives from the Karathi and Vadran came too. They had fought together. Now they would build peace together. The Draxian delegation arrived looking defeated. Their empire had been humbled. Their military was in ruins. They had no choice but to accept Earth's terms. The treaty was signed. The war was officially over. The galaxy had a new order now, one where Earth had a voice, a strong voice. Rear Admiral Hyunwoo returned to Earth as a hero. Millions of people lined the streets to see him. They cheered and waved flags. He smiled and waved back, but inside he felt strange. He was not a hero. He was just a man who did his duty. A man who was lucky to survive. He visited the memorial for the 143 miners who died. Their names were carved into black stone. He stood there for a long time reading each name. The war had started because of them, because Earth refused to let their deaths be meaningless. He hoped they would be proud of what Earth had accomplished. Admiral Jiwan received a new position. Secretary of Interstellar Defense. She would oversee Earth's military for years to come. Her job was to make sure Earth stayed strong. Not to conquer, not to bully, but to defend, to protect, to ensure that no one would ever again think humans were weak. Lieutenant Mireille was promoted to commander. She would lead the development of new weapon systems. Earth's technology had proven itself in battle, but there was always room for improvement, always new threats to prepare for. She threw herself into the work with passion. Commander Daeho decided to retire from the military. He had served for 30 years. He had seen enough war, but he did not stop working. He became an advisor to the shipyards. His knowledge helped train the next generation of engineers. His legacy would live on in every ship they built. Captain Taewon received command of a new squadron of stealth ships. His work was not done. The galaxy was a dangerous place. There were threats beyond the Draxians, pirates, rogue states, unknown aliens, and unexplored space. Earth needed scouts, needed intelligence. Taewon and his crews would provide it. Dr. Hana founded the Galactic Research Collaborative. It brought together scientists from multiple species, humans, Karathi, Vaedran, even some Draxians who wanted to move past the war. Together they would push the boundaries of knowledge, create technologies that could benefit everyone. 5 years passed. Earth prospered. New colonies were established. Trade flourished. The war became history. Children learned about it in schools. They learned about courage and sacrifice. They learned that humanity would never surrender. Then came news of a new crisis. Far away in the outer rim, an unknown species was attacking established worlds. They were aggressive and powerful. They destroyed everything in their path. The Galactic Assembly debated what to do. Many species were afraid to get involved. They did not want another war. Then something appeared on long-range sensors. A fleet was approaching the threatened region. A massive fleet. Alien commanders on nearby stations watched the screens carefully. They tried to identify the ships. The design was distinctive, sleek and deadly. They had seen ships like these before. One commander, a veteran from a dozen species, leaned forward. His eyes widened as he recognized the fleet. Other commanders gathered around the displays. They whispered to each other. Some seemed relieved. Others seemed nervous. Finally, a young officer asked the question that everyone was thinking. Whose fleet is that? The question hung in the air. The veteran commander smiled slightly. He had fought against that fleet once. He had learned to respect it. He had learned to fear it. He answered clearly so everyone could hear. Terra's. The answer echoed through the station. Terra's fleet. Earth's fleet. The human fleet moved with precision and purpose. They were not alone. Karathi and Vaedran ships accompanied them. The alliance that won the war was still strong. They moved to intercept the unknown threat, to protect the innocent worlds under attack, to maintain peace in the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the UESS Unity. It was larger and more powerful than the Indomitable. It represented everything Earth had become: strong, confident, respected. He looked at the screens showing the threatened worlds. People needed help. Earth would provide it. He thought about how far humanity had come. A decade ago, Earth was dismissed, ignored, bullied. Now when Earth's fleet appeared, the galaxy took notice. They listened. They respected. Some even feared. But most were grateful. Grateful that Earth used its power to protect, not to conquer. The age of humanity had begun. Not through domination, not through cruelty, but through determination, through innovation, through courage. Earth had earned its place among the stars. And Earth would defend that place, would defend all who needed defending. The galaxy had learned a lesson. A lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate humanity. Never dismiss them as weak. Never think they will surrender. Humans were fighters, survivors, innovators. They would adapt to any challenge, overcome any obstacle. They had proven it against the Draxians. They would prove it again and again. As the Unity entered battle formation, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo gave the order to advance. The crew responded with perfect coordination. They had trained for this, prepared for this. They were ready. The stars stretched out before them, full of challenges and opportunities, and humanity would face them all. Together, unafraid, unbreakable.